There are a lot of important relationship skills to develop if you want to have close, deeply connected relationships. But one of them, oddly, is being able to tolerate your hurt feelings. And we're going to dive into that in this video. I'm Stacy Rockline, and I'm on a mission to eradicate loneliness. And when we have a rupture that pulls us apart, there are always hurt feelings, and being able to repair is how we keep ourselves from feeling lonely in our relationships. And part of that repair process is being able to tolerate our hurt feelings. If we think about relationships on a continuum, I love thinking about things in really clear terms. In a perfect relationship, this is what it would be like. I would know exactly where the other person's, landmines are, what their triggers are, and I would be super careful to not hurt their feelings. And they would have that same awareness of me, and they would do the same. So pretty much like we wouldn't hurt each other's feelings, but let's just say we did. In that case, our communication would be so good, and we would be so present with each other that we would be able to talk about our feelings and talk about what happened, and nobody would get triggered. I would say my thoughts and they would just be fine and be able to listen, and vice versa. And then we would come together and we would have, awareness, understanding, we would acknowledge each other. There would be compromise, apologies if necessary, and then growth so that we change from the experience going forward. So that'd be amazing. That's kind of like where we're all trying to head, but you're hardly ever going to get there in most of your relationships. It's sort of the ideal. And then the very opposite would be a really dysfunctional relationship where I know where everybody's landmines are, and I'm actually stepping into dangerous territory all the time. And they know all my buttons and they're pushing them all the time. And when we have conflict, which is constant, we can't hear each other. We can't communicate. We're a whole just big ball of triggers, and we never get anywhere. We never improve anything. We don't apologize. It's just a total mess. So that would be on that side. Your relationships are going to be somewhere in the middle. Now, some of them get pretty close to the perfect side, right? I've got some of those in my life. They're awesome. They're so easy and they're fun. They're lovely. And I've got some further down the continuum, and it looks very similar. But what is different about those compared to the first ones is that there's not as much intimacy. We don't really dig in. Like maybe I do trigger them or they trigger me, but it's little things and we both just kind of let it go, sweep it under the rug, but the rug never gets so filled with stuff that it becomes a hazard to us. But we don't have quite the closeness. Most of the relationships that you're really, really close in, though, are farther down the road there toward the less ideal version of relationship. And that makes sense because the ones that are easier are generally people that we don't see quite as often. We are usually on our best behavior. We try really hard. But if you think about your partnerships where, your siblings and your family and your spouse and your kids, the points of contact, there are a lot more. You see them a lot more often. They see you and you see them when you're in all kinds of moods, all kinds of stress. The stakes feel really high because you want to be really close to these people. And there's a lot of shared history. You've been in these usually for a long time. So there's a lot more there. But the good news is there's usually more intimacy. Like those are the places where you feel really seen. You feel really known. But they have more conflict, which is completely normal. That just happens. We have to be able, in those relationships in particular, be able to tolerate our own hurt feelings. Now, when I say tolerate, I do not mean tolerate the behavior that caused your hurt feelings. That's something that you need to talk about and hopefully come to some kind of conclusion about where you can make adjustments and grow so it doesn't happen again. But in the meantime, we have to be able to sit with how we feel, because when we can't do that, we bail, we take off, we run mentally, emotionally, or physically. We shut down where we just we cannot connect anymore. We freak out. We, have our own explosive reaction because we're not able to sit there and tolerate our feelings. But when we can acknowledge that we have hurt feelings, then we are calmer and we can communicate. And if we can communicate in a healthy way and in a calm way, we have a way higher likelihood of being able to express ourselves clearly, to keep from triggering the other person, and then being able to just talk about exactly what happened. When we can't tolerate our hurt feelings, then we have one of those other reactions where we shut down, we bail, we freak out, which causes more hurt feelings. And then this whole thing just escalates into, reactions and responses and triggers, and it gets farther and farther away from the original thing. So being able to tolerate hurt feelings is actually kind of a super skill. It's just like communication, just like the skill of being vulnerable. All things come with practice, just like the ability to try something, make mistakes, apologize, learn, grow. Staying when we have hurt feelings, having them arise, noticing them, and not running from them is kind of the first step before we can start to communicate. So yes, we all want to, move in the direction of that perfect relationship where we're really careful around each other. And when something goes wrong, we're able to communicate. But one of the ways to get there is to have a tolerance for our hurt feelings. And I think of tolerance as just the ability to endure something that makes you feel uncomfortable, something unpleasant, and to stay in control of your own behavior. Like I said, that doesn't mean tolerate what happened. That means tolerating your hurt feelings. So a skill to go work on, something that can be very beneficial for your ability to communicate. And if you need help tolerating your feelings by naming them and even understanding what's going on with you, make sure that you grab a feel wheel from the link I'm going to leave, which is just a wheel filled with all kinds of different emotions, so that when you can feel a yuckiness or an unpleasant feeling, you can look at it and say, oh, I'm feeling embarrassed or upset or stressed or humiliated, jealous, whatever. There's all kinds of subtle differences. And when you can name your feeling, then you have a word to use to communicate it. And that is how we keep moving in the direction of those amazing, ideal relationships. So good luck on your tolerance, and I will see you next time.